Hello everybody, Maven here, and the Renewal Grasps are back on the menu, and with them, we're able to spam Duskfield Grenades every 5 seconds. Yes, I am not exaggerating. Every 5 seconds, sometimes quicker. This is one of the most insane ability spam builds I've ever built on Hunter. So what happened to the Renewal Grasps is Bungie buffed them. And what I mean by buffed them, I just mean that they undid the latest nerf they issued to them. They used to slow your cooldown, and now they no longer do. So now because of this buff, Stasis Hunter has regained a lot of its identity and can see play in PvE again. Because before this nerf, what exotic were we going to use on Stasis Hunter? Think about it. There was nothing that gave Stasis Hunter an identity, but now it's back. So let's break down the build. Don't forget to drop a like, and I hope you enjoy. So if you are new to Destiny and do not know what this does, the Renewal Grasp enhances your Duskfield to make it larger, and allies inside the Duskfield take reduced damage and enemies deal less damage when they're in your Duskfield. So it gives you a ×2 resist buff, but you can make it ×3 if you pair it with Whisper of Chains, so that is a 40% damage resist. So first things first, take a look at this clip here and you can see that I can get my grenade back in exactly 5 seconds. So while this clip plays out, I'm going to go over everything that's contributing to our grenade regeneration. So the first thing is Whisper of Shards. So when we shatter that Stasis Crystal, we get boosted grenade regen for 5 seconds. And then we got a copy of Grenade Kickstart along with the copy of Charged Up, so we can hold up to 4 stacks of armor charge. And the more armor charge you consume for a Kickstart mod, the more energy you get back. And I'll go over the way we're getting armor charge later, but it's extremely easy with this build to get 4 stacks of armor charge. It's effortless and it just happens on its own. And then the next thing is the Impact Induction perk. So that's why you see me throwing a Stasis Shuriken or punching whenever I can, because it gives us a chunk of grenade energy. And then we got Bomber, so dodging is going to give us a chunk of grenade energy. And then we got a copy of Innervation, so when we pick up an Orb of Power, we get some grenade cooldown. And finally, we got Demolitionist weapons. I am using the Iterative Loop with Lead from Gold Demolitionist, and remember, shotguns and fusion rifles with Demolitionist work differently than the rest of the weapon types. They grant 20% grenade energy back on final blows instead of 10% like any other weapon with Demolitionist. But since you can enhance the Iterative Loop, since it's craftable, you can get 22% grenade energy back on final blows. And then the machine gun I am using is the Corrective Measure with Demolitionist and Adrenaline Junkie. However, I do not have my hands on the Godroll Song of Irute yet, which can get Demolitionist and Sword Logic and has the awesome new Curse Thrall origin trait. So that is definitely going to be the weapon you're going to want with this build if you have it. And since both the Song of Irute and the Iterative Loop are both Arc, you can just run Arc Siphon. You know, if you want to run Arc Scavenger, you can do that, or Arc Reserves. So it works with both of those weapons. So that is definitely the more optimal weapon to use here. But for now, since I don't have it, I'm using the Corrective Measure. Now, to explain how stupidly easy it is to get 4 stacks of armor charge with this build, let's talk about Grim Harvest. When you defeat a slowed or frozen combatant, you create stasis shards. These shards grant you melee energy. So that happens all the time. Since we're throwing Duskfields and throwing Shurikens everywhere, everything's getting slowed or frozen, so everything's going to generate shards. And the shards fly towards us because of Whisper of Conduction. They completely track to our position and also give us overshields or health with Whisper of Rhyme, which makes it even better. And because of these crazy amount of shards auto-tracking to us, that brings us to Elemental Charge. So collecting an elemental pickup, such as all of these listed here, such as a Stasis Shard, it gives us a chance to get armor charge. And at the rate we are generating these things, it happens in the blink of an eye without you even thinking about it. And you pair that along with stacks on stacks, so it gives us 2 armor charge instead of 1. It's completely effortless to get up to 4 stacks for Grenade Kickstart, and that's how we're able to get our grenade back so fast. Or we can also just pick up orbs to get armor charge. So we got a Siphon mod for that, and also Reaper, so we dodge in our next kill, we'll make an orb, and obviously we're dodging on the spot as soon as we get it to get some grenade cooldown back because of Bomber. And while we're here, might as well explain the rest of the build here. So also got Outreach, so we get some Shuriken energy back when we dodge, and that is feeding into Impact Induction. Remember, when we melee, we get some grenade energy back. We got Bolstering Detonation, so when we get a tag with our Duskfield Grenade, it gives us some dodge ability back so that we can proc Bomber. So you can see how all of these abilities are feeding into each other. Then on my chest, I got Void Reserves for my machine gun. Now, it makes more sense to run the Song of Irute, so you can run Arc Reserves that benefit both your Iterative Loop and your Song of Irute. But, you know, remember, for now, I don't have it, so I'm just running this. You can run whatever you need to, though. But if you're doing more difficult content, I would recommend taking this off and instead running some resist mods, because that's more important. And then on my helmet, to round it all out, got heavy ammo finder. Now, typically I hate finder mods. Finder bricks grant you like no ammo at all, but because we are running a lead from gold weapon, I feel that every time you run lead from gold, it is necessary to run a heavy finder because that'll also give you a bunch of special too. And for the rest of the subclass here, we got Durance to make our Duskfields last longer, and then Torment to get some nade energy back when we take damage. Forgot to mention this one earlier when we were talking about that. But if you wanted to sacrifice Touch of Winter, it would make your Duskfield smaller, but that would allow you to run Shatter Dive. So if you were speed running, this would give you an option to Shatter Skate. So it really depends on what you're doing. So stat-wise, got triple hundreds in Mobility, Resilience, and Discipline, and then put a minimum of 3 in Intellect and try to put the rest into Strength. So that is what I would recommend. So for my kinetic weapon, I'm running the Witherhoard just because I wanted a damage dealing option. So when I run into a fatter target, I have something to hit it. You know, tag it with the Witherhoard, burst it down with the Fusion or Machine Gun. I'm running double specials, which did just get nerfed recently, but I'm still running it anyways because I got lead from gold. However, you can run whatever you want in the top slot. It depends on the activity, but if you do choose to use a primary in that slot, then I'd recommend taking off the machine gun and running a damage dealing heavy instead, because you need something on your loadout that can deal heavy damage. So at that point, run like some kind of exotic or a Wendigo or whatever. So whatever primary you choose to run though, make sure it has Demolitionist along with a damage perk such as Frenzy. There are several different primaries that get Demo Frenzy, so you got some options. And if for some reason you can't run the Iterative Loop in the special slot, you can also run the Riptide in the top slot, because it can also get the same role of lead from gold and Demolitionist. So for the gameplay loop with this build, prioritize using your grenade ability over your other abilities, because your other abilities will help cool down your grenades. So start with that. Shoot your enemies first before prioritizing shooting your crystal, because you can proc your Demolitionist weapons and then proc Whisperer shards afterwards. So then you want to start to get hits with shurikens and dodge whenever you possibly can, because all of those things will give you back your nades. And that is pretty much it. Now this is a very solid exotic to use in endgame content like Grandmasters. It just really helps you control the battlefield. And also, Stasis is just super good in the kind of content that has a lot of champions, because the Stasis subclass alone can deal with all 3 champions. You got Slow for Overload champions, you got Shatter for Unstoppables, and when a barrier champion is sitting in your Duskfield Grenade, it will constantly get frozen out of its barrier animation, allowing you the time to burst it down with your teammates. But it is a little bit risky. If your teammates aren't team shotting with you, your Duskfield will end and it'll be back to normal. So the only weapon type you really have to worry about on Stasis Hunter is a barrier weapon. That's it. You don't have to have too much stress on your loadout and endgame content, which is a very solid thing. And remember that the Renewal Grasp is also a survival exotic because it makes you tankier, and it also lowers the damage output of the enemies in the Duskfield. So in a pinch, you can just throw it at your feet to get some cover, make that giant stasis crystal like a pseudo barricade and give you some resist. And if you're doing endgame content, you might want to throw on Whisper of Chains to make yourself even tankier. With ×2 resist buff, you have a 25% damage resistance, but with that ×3, if you put on Chains, that's a 40% damage resistance. And now before we wrap this one up, I know somebody's gonna ask if I try the Tessellation with this build, and the answer is no. I'm too broke to spend $100 on a gun right now. I'd rather buy groceries. So anyways, as usual, I'll leave a dim loadout link to this build down below in the description and the pinned comment if you'd like to give it a try. And if you have any Hunter main buddies out there, I'd appreciate it if you share this video with them. And that's gonna do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to hit the like button and drop a comment, because interacting with the video in different types of ways like that really helps it out and helps the algorithm. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you here. And with that, I'll catch you in the next video. See you later.